Hello. So I'm about to show you a little clip of a video. Here is Matt Dillahunty, who I greatly admire, but find a unique hypocrisy in. Um, Matt Dillahunty, of course, is the one of the hosts of the Atheist Experience. He is a prominent member of the atheist community. Um, Online and in Texas, and has played an integral role in providing support and understanding to many atheists, including myself. Uh, he's about to talk about an experiment. I think I had mentioned this, um, and it's to demonstrate how to build a good society. So listen to this, and all right, let's go, Matt.
Because there's going to be problems with all of it. But if you get people convinced that the goal is, as I would describe it, well-being, then you can show how the laws that you put forth or the rules that you're going to put forth either further the notion of well-being, harm well-being, or have little to no effect on well-being. And probably the best method to get people, or one of the best methods to get people to realize this, is John Rawls' veil of ignorance. And that plays on people's innate sense of fairness by removing as much bias as it can. And essentially it just says, design the society that you would be willing to live in, not knowing who you are in that society. So that, hey, we're going to have a law about slavery. Is slavery legally permissible? Or it doesn't matter whether we call it legal or moral. We'll just say, is the rule that slavery is okay or that slavery is bad? And if you design a system not knowing whether you're going to be the slave or the slave owner, generally speaking, I would argue that any rational, empathetic person who actually understands and cares about well-being would say, nope, we can't allow slavery, if for no other reason than I might end up being a slave. That.
Okay, so John Rawls' veil of ignorance, and Matt Dillahunty so eloquently, what's that word? Shoot, I'm trying to think of that word. Just means speak. It just means it's a fancy word for speaking. It starts with E. Oh, what's that word? I'll get it here. When I get it, I'll tell you. Yeah, he tells that so eloquently. And the thing that Matt does here is, and what you already understand about this is, talking about, in your society, is slavery bad? Is it okay to be able to put people into bad economic positions and then buy their organs? Just basic, fundamental ethical questions about human rights. But what Matt doesn't do is he doesn't extend this in his mind to animals, and I think that he does this arbitrarily. I think that he would find some reason to say, oh, I don't consider animals because they're not humans, and that doesn't apply to this. But my argument is that it's just as meaningful, this veil of ignorance. If you were to build a society, what are the rules? Should animals be able to be imprisoned for their entire lives and then killed and slaughtered to be eaten? I see no non-arbitrary reason why we shouldn't include animals in this experiment, and that's because they're conscious and sentient and can have that experience. And I think that if you're exactly what Matt was saying, a reasonable, compassionate, sensible human being, you would say, just as he said, well, no, we shouldn't have factory farming, and we shouldn't be doing this to animals because that might be me. And you don't say this about a laundry basket or a cell phone or soda pop can because you can't. Nothing. There is no being a laundry basket, and I don't think. I think it's completely arbitrary to pretend that animals are not beings. So that's my challenge. I hope that when looking at this, we can be objective and moral. But I wanted to present that argument and see where it takes us.
I do have a concern with it, though. So you talk about the well-being of society as a whole, and I think rational people can get behind that. However, when it comes to choosing between what's better for the society as a whole and choosing what's better for yourself, why would you what rationale would you have to tell someone to choose the well-being for the society as a whole?
Yep, that is absolutely the biggest sticking point in this is that when we look at well-being, hey, this could really benefit me, but might harm society. So how do I weigh my well-being against the well-being of society? There's not a simple answer. There's no simple calculus we can do to sort that out. But the big thing to do is to realize that if I'm focused primarily on my well-being, there's no problem with that as long as I'm able to evaluate all of the broader consequences. So I guess the easiest way to do it is to say it like this. I live in society, and my actions have consequences for myself and for other people. And I have to be able to not live myopically and focus on my own life, because what may be in my short-term best interest could be long-term incredibly harmful for me. And what we need to engage in is a level of humility that we do not possess the ability or the data to evaluate all possible consequences. And so you go back to the veil of ignorance of saying, if I understand that this person wants to rob this bank and that'll be in their short-term interest, but what does that do to everybody else? And is it actually in their best interest? Because if the interest rate that you earn goes down and the cost of banking goes up and it begins to affect the rest of society, all of a sudden your money becomes less and less valuable. And it's our inability to look at those broader consequences that make us think things are in our best interest when they might not be. And you can make a case that if you ignored what was in your immediate best interest and focused on what made the world better as a whole, you are still improving and you are still getting a better life out of it, because now the entire world, which you are part of, is improved. Are you as improved as you might be if you were selfish about it? Possibly not, but you might also be more damaged in the long term by being selfish that way.
So yeah, I remembered that there was a little bit after what he had said at first, and so I just wanted to really drive that home about the reasons why we should be considering or at least the rationale, sorry, not the reasons, but the rationale behind why veganism is to be considered in this. Long-term consequences, you don't know how dangerous it can be for you in the future. I think that Matt is someone who values logical consistency, and as long as you don't adhere to understanding of vegan concepts, then I think you're lacking that consistency. Great work on the atheist experience, though. Hi, I was watching a bunch of debate videos, and one of them happened to be between Matt Dillahunty and Vegan Gains, and it turns out Matt Dillahunty has some unique outlooks, but I think that they're wrong. So, uh, the primary argument that he's presenting, actually the only one that Vegan Gains didn't basically smash, was essentially Matt's arguing that, and if you go just look at this debate, you'll see, essentially Matt is saying the social contract, or sorry, those whom we extend rights to have to be under the umbrella of, I hope I'm steel manning here rightly. They have to be able to reason and communicate and, and reciprocate the social contract back to us. This is basically his argument, and I think it's flimsy and arbitrary, but nonetheless, if I am to deal it a fair amount of respect, I have to address that. And ultimately, his claim is he is not convinced that it's a moral obligation to not eat animals, and that has to be contextual. It cannot be arbitrary, because ethics are situational, by his own admission. So, in other words, the argument that we have to be able to reciprocate this social contract is defeated under certain hypotheticals, and they're far-fetched, but they're admissible in my view. Namely, if I always use goblins from space. If goblins from space invade our planet and they're psychic goblins that communicate through psychic channels, just brain transmissions to each other, and they agree that humans look like tasty meals, is it right for them to eat us? And Matt might say something like, well, no, because we can reason and communicate, and so what if it's the case that these psychic goblins have no idea what we're communicating? They think we're basically savages. We're basically, to them, we're just savage beasts making animal noises, and under that context of these psychic space goblins that are invading us, that see us as nothing but a savage, noisy beast, that they cannot have a social contract with, then by Matt's logic here, they are completely I'll use the correct terms here. They have no moral obligation to not eat us to extinction, and so that's why I think Matt Dillahunty is wrong here. I think Vegan Gains addressed a lot of his other things. I mean, now I'm talking about something that, in my view, this is a metaphysical claim, perhaps, because I'm talking about something. Well, all truth claims are somewhat metaphysical, I think. There's a background truth here that I'm appealing to. I think that this is always true under any order, and so, but I've set all that crap aside, actually. Just think about the space goblins, the psychic space goblins. What reasonable argument do you have? You know, I mean, these things, they come down and they trap us in electric nets. None of our weapons work on them. And just pull us out of away from the earth, and then put us in a big barbecue. You know, and what do you actually have an argument for why they shouldn't do that? You know, and I think that Matt doesn't have that. So, Matt, if you ever watch this, go vegan, because there's psychic space goblins, and you don't know what the future holds, and maybe they're magical psychic space goblins that operate strictly on a sort of a karmic or logical level. It's like, if you if you believe, I don't know. But yeah, that's my take. You don't have to take it seriously, but I think that it is a serious issue with Matt's claim, Matt's rejection of the moral obligation to animals that are lower order, that can't reason with us.